Join Tavis Smiley and an all-star panel of political insiders, influencers, and journalists for a look back at the crisis that shook LA City Hall when 4 Latino leaders were caught on tape making racist, demeaning, and derogatory statements about black people and other fellow citizens on Monday, October 9th, exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580. The tape, 1 year later. We'll broadcast live an afternoon drive from 5 to 7 p.m. with an immediate encore presentation from 7 to 9 p.m. When all was said and done, was more said than done. 1 year later, are there fractures in LA's black-brown political partnership? And where do we go from here? Don't miss The Tape, 1 year later. Only on KBLA Talk 1580, Monday, October 9th, live from 5 to 7 p.m. with an immediate encore presentation from 7 to 9 p.m. We've got a lot to talk about.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's thetavissmileyshow.com or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, we'll meet 3 black women who are trying to save America's black cemeteries. Yamona Pierce, Lisa Fager, and Margot Williams are working to preserve desecrated African-American burial grounds. You will hear their stories in their own words as they crisscross this country trying to save America's black cemeteries in hour 2. In our third hour, why are more African-American families turning to homeschooling for their children? Record numbers of black parents now opting for homeschooling for their babies. Trelanda Stewart of Homegrown Homeschools joins us in hour 3 to explain this phenomenon. That said, we commence today's show with a number of conversations in this first hour. On the backside of this hour, we'll talk to not one but 2 members of the Congressional Black Caucus, one old school, one new school, both representing the city of Chicago. The newbie, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, son of Jesse, and longtime Congressman Danny Davis, both join us on the backside of this hour. And speaking of the Congressional Black Caucus, we commence today's show exploring the motives and consequences of California Governor Gavin Newsom's choice of a black woman named LaFonza Butler to fill the Senate seat of Dianne Feinstein, who passed away last week. You heard a bit of my commentary about this yesterday. I've got some concerns about this, specifically as it relates to Gavin's motives and consequences. LaFonza Butler will be the only black woman in the U.S. Senate, given former California Senator Kamala Harris's upgrade to the VP's office in the White House. Okay, I think that's an upgrade. Guess it depends on who you ask. In any event, I am pleased now to be joined in conversation by LA Times columnist Mark Barabak. Mark, good to have you on, sir. How are you today?
I'm good. Good to be with you.
Good to have you on. Thanks for the opportunity. So I'm a little suspect of Gavin's motives in this regard. I'll just start with that, and we'll jump from there. That's my sense. Suspect. I can unpack that as we move forward. But give me your read of this move by Governor Gavin Newsom.
Well, to start by quoting myself, I did a column this morning, and if I were to sum it up in a sentence, it was, I think, a good pick, and it was very, very poorly executed. I mean, LaFonza Butler, I know LaFonza's some. I had a long conversation with her for a column I did a couple of years, I guess. very capable, really quite an impressive resume. The thing that I like that she brings to the Senate is her perspective. She's 44, which, in Senate terms makes her a spring chicken. She is openly lesbian. She came from, a pretty hard scrabble upbringing, had a mom. Her father passed when she was 16. Her mom had to work a lot of jobs to support her and herself and her three kids. Came up through the labor movement. She does not have a trust fund or a hedge fund or a silver spoon in her background. And I think that's a great perspective to bring to the Senate. The other side of it is I think Governor Newsom really made a hash of this whole thing. It started when he made a promise to fill any vacancy, at that time theoretical, with a black woman. Then he said, well, if I do it, it's just going to be a caretaker. And then he said, not going to be a caretaker. I just think too much backing and forthing. I think he really made a hash of the whole thing.
I'm glad you laid that out, and the piece this morning is a pretty good piece. Let me just start to pick some of this apart if I can, and I want to start broad, and we can narrow this. So how would you, as a columnist? I mean, obviously you're not an African American, but as a columnist, how would you respond to people that say, and many have said it, that this is the worst kind of identity politics played by the left? And what is the point of saying in advance, whether you're Joe Biden or Gavin Newsom? Now, again, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, that when this opportunity comes up, I'm going to pick a black person for this, a black woman for this. How would you respond to folks that is the worst kind of identity politics?
I wouldn't call it the worst kind of identity politics. I would say it's bad politics, for this reason. If Gavin Newsom says, you know what, if there's an opening, I'm going to appoint a black woman, or I'm going to appoint a Latino, or I'm going to appoint a white chubby guy with a goatee. From that point on, everyone is going to say, well, the only reason they appointed that person is because they're a black woman or a Latino or a chubby white guy with a goatee. The best thing to do would have been just to appoint LaFonza or whoever and say, hey, this is a great pick, and here's why I made that pick. But he didn't do that, and here's where I fault Gavin Newsom. We got to go back in time. It was March of 2021. He was facing a potential recall. There were a lot of angry people. I don't have to tell you, a lot of angry black folks about the fact that he did not replace Kamala Harris with a black woman. And so he just blurted out, well, I'm going to appoint a black woman. Again, should have just done it. But from his perspective, he doesn't get the political points. So he made that promise and everything that ensued to, I think, his detriment. And how do you explain next? How do you explain the fact that at one point he said that whoever he appointed would be just interim? He would not appoint someone that was going to run for the seat. There'd be conditions on the appointment. Then all of a sudden we read that there are no conditions on LaFonza Butler. If she wanted to, she could run for this seat, and the race is already filled with another black woman, Barbara Lee. There's Adam Schiff. There's Katie Porter. How and where did that change come from? Well, I think he just felt a lot of pressure. I think he felt pressure twice on. I think he made the promise going back to March of 2021 that he would appoint a black woman, and then it became somewhat untenable when you had three very viable, candidates competing. As your listeners know, I'm sure, Representatives Barbara Lee, Adam Schiff, Katie Porter. As the race got hot and heavy, I think he realized, and I happen to agree with this, that, it's not my place to put a thumb on the scale. There are people who are running. Let them sort it out. Let the voters decide, and whoever's going to be the appointment will be an interim. And then he faced a lot of pressure from folks who weren't happy, in particular supporters of Barbara Lee. I think he just wilted under pressure.
More to talk about. For those across the nation, her name is LaFonza Butler. We know her well here in California. For that matter, she's known nationally. She was an advisor to Kamala Harris. She will now be the only black woman in the United States Senate. You heard Mark Baerback say a moment ago, a good pick, but poor execution. I've got some issues with that. We'll pick it apart when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom. Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac, perfected like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. Haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Deal it, beloved, clearly we're hustling. Bussin', truckin'. Cadillac, Cadillac. Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range. On a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with SCHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
To some, this might sound like a typical family dog. But at Dog Chow, we know that for a veteran suffering from PTSD, this could be the sound of life-saving therapy.
Thanks, Betty.
That's why we've made it our mission to connect every military hero in need with a canine hero of their own. To learn about the simple ways you can help Dog Chow in our mission, visit dogchow.com/veterans.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Roll Charmin Ultra Strong when you drop in the beat. It cleans with way less effort on your seat. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Okay. Charmin flows extra strong from the road. Your butt hella clean while you're sitting on the bowl. Yeah, it's all you need for that bathroom groove. Get you in and out without nothing to prove.
Charmin Ultra Strong cleans better so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Mark Baerback is our guest, LA Times columnist, talking about all the politics around LaFonza Butler being selected by California Governor Gavin Newsom to fill the remaining term of Senator Dianne Feinstein, who served California 30 years in the Senate, passed away last week. LaFonza Butler sworn in today by Kamala Harris, the vice president. So there is now a black woman in the U.S. Senate as of today. Once again, her name is LaFonza Butler. She has been the head of Emily's List, a group that raises money to get women candidates elected across the country, formerly a major union player, born and raised in Mississippi, the state of my birth. So she comes from humble beginnings, and now she is sitting in the U.S. Senate. I can't imagine, Mark, even though these conditions about this person not being able to run, those conditions that you mentioned earlier have been removed. I can't imagine at this point, given that we're facing a March primary in California, that LaFonza would, in fact, get in this race on the one hand, given that Barbara Lee is there, Adam Schiff, Katie Porter. On the other hand, there's nothing like being an incumbent running for office, and clearly as the head of Emily's List, she's got access to a lot of money. So what's your thought about whether or not she will in fact be a seat warmer, whether or not she's going to catch the bug and want to run for this seat?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I want to interject something real quick. And how many times have you seen a politician bust this move? We refer to Kamala, Gavin, LaFonza, Dianne. That's just a California thing. No disrespect. That's just kind of the way we refer to folks. So, LaFonza, what you going to do? That's a really good question. And I'm not using the royal here. We here. The LA Times had an interview with LaFonza, and she said, I honestly don't know. And you can understand that. I mean, she said this has been a whirlwind. She had no idea she was going to be asked for this job. So that really, truly is the question. I think you raise a really, really good point. She would obviously start out with certain advantages. She is now the incumbent United States Senator. She's got deep political ties to strategists in the labor world, among women's groups, as you mentioned. All of that said, it's going 0 to 100. I mean, the primary is 5 months from now. And I think, those of us who do this for a living or talk about this for a living kind of take for granted, it's really hard to get well known in a state as big as California. I mean, I've covered California politics for 40 plus years. And, someone like Dianne Feinstein, it would take years years for her to become a household name in the state. So I don't think you can underestimate, and I'm not making any predictions and saying she can or she can't, but I think it would be really, really tough for LaFonza to go from 0 to 100. You can do it, but it'd be a challenge.
Used the word poorly earlier, as in poorly executed. Good pick. I want to inject the word messy. This is messy because LaFonza Butler tells the LA Times she's not sure whether she's going to run for the seat. But there's a black woman who's highly regarded in this state, respected, Barbara Lee, who's already in this race. She's running in third right now, according to the polls. Adam Schiff is out front slightly ahead of Katie Porter. He's certainly killing both of them in fundraising. I think Katie has about $12 million on hand. Schiff is sitting on $30 million. The country knows Adam Schiff is the guy who ran the impeachment hearings against Donald Trump. So Schiff is out front. Katie's in second. Barbara's lagging a much farther behind, with only like 1.4, 1.7 million on hand. But she's a highly regarded, highly respected member of Congress, and black folk like and respect Barbara Lee. For Gavin to give LaFonza this seat and to remove the condition that the person can't run for the open seat is a slap in the face, many black folk believe, to Barbara Lee. You don't see that?
I've heard that. I mean, I can't speak for black folks, not being black myself, but I've heard that argument.
Hey, Mark. If it makes you feel better, I'm black and I can't speak for black folk either. But I digress. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, so there you go. I mean, I've heard that argument. I heard the argument that it would be really hard for black women in particular to attack another black woman. I've heard that argument that it's divided folks. Was it intentional on Gavin's part? I mean, I don't know that. I'm not inside his head. I don't know the calculation there. I think, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some influence. LaFonza worked with A. Smith, Sean Clegg, neither of which are household names, but if you're familiar with California politics, you would know them. They're political advisors to Gavin. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if they had some influence. Of course, LaFonza's a former partner in their firm. Did that have some influence on Gavin's decision? Wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. No, not only would that be a slap, if she decides to run, that could be considered by many as a slap to Barbara Lee, number one. Number two, it raises the specter. Again, I'm outside of your wheelhouse right now, so just bear with me for 30 seconds. It raises the specter of black people allowing themselves to be exploited and manipulated and treated like pawns when it comes to disrespecting other black people. Trust and believe that conversation is going to jump off if LaFonza Butler decides to run for this seat, number two. But let me just press a little. Let me press a little harder on this. I laid this out yesterday, Mark, to this audience in my views about the way this has been handled, and I hear your point about good pick, poorly executed. I think it's messy. And here's the point I'm pressing toward. This is the same Gavin Newsom, and I said yesterday, let me repeat again, that the country will see, everybody in the country has already heard about Gavin Newsom, of course. His presidential ambitions are the worst kept secret in the country, never mind the fact that Joe Biden has said he's running and Gavin said he won't. But we know that at some point Gavin has dreams of and aspirations of being president. There's no question about that. The country will see him debate Ron DeSantis, we are told, on Fox News. So Fox News is featuring some debate with, I don't get it, but DeSantis and Newsom are going to go at it in a debate on Fox News. So the country will get to see Gavin Newsom. And he's handsome, he's sharp, he's witty, he's all of that. And so they may be impressed by Gavin Newsom. But I said to the audience yesterday, let me tell you something else about Gavin Newsom. This is the same guy who refused to endorse Karen Bass when she ran for mayor. She's a Democrat. He's a Democrat. He said that Rick Caruso and Karen were both his friends, but as a Democrat, he refused to endorse Karen Bass in a historic race to become the first woman to be mayor of this city. He stayed out of that race, number one. Number two, his idea, in part on reparations for this task force, but he started to moonwalk, as it were, on the reparations issue. On and on down the list I could go. When Kamala Harris, as you mentioned earlier, became vice president, he could have put, and many believe should have put, a black woman in that seat. He put a Latino in that seat. Again, playing politics. This is the same Gavin Newsom now who has given this pick to LaFonza Butler initially to be a seat warmer. As we said earlier, he's backed off of that. My point simply is this, and obviously you get it, that Gavin Newsom has a tricky relationship when it comes to black folk who have bailed him out and supported him in every one of his elections. That's part of the story too, is it not?
I think you're right. I think if Gavin, I don't think he's going to run for president in 2024, one way or the other. But if he runs for the president down the road, I think you're absolutely right. You sort of laid out the bill of particulars, if you will. I think there is a question how much black support Gavin Newsom would have. And when he does go campaign in the black community, which any Democrat running for president has to do, I imagine he'll be answering, or at least ask a lot of the questions you've raised, and be put upon at that point to respond.
Yeah, this is the same. This and as smart as Gavin is, this is the part about his calculus that I don't really get, unless you just accept the fact that black folk are always a political calculation, and I do accept that too often black people are nothing more than political calculus. You're disrespected and taken for granted by the Democrats. You're ignored by Republicans. But anyway you look at it, too often black people end up being political calculus. What Gavin needs to remember is what happened to Amy Klobuchar. When Amy Klobuchar ran for president, all the black folk in Minnesota told the country their own story of who Amy Klobuchar was inside that state and what she had not done when it came to criminal justice for black people. And that's what imploded her campaign. Had it not been for that, let's be clear, she would have been Joe Biden's pick for vice president more likely than Kamala Harris at that point. But the country got reminded of who she was inside that state by the black folk in that state who knew her better. And Gavin Newsom is going to suffer, I think, the same fate down the road. And that doesn't really fit into a guy who's pretty smart about politics, as I see it, Mark Barabak.
Well, my crystal ball is a bit hazy on what may or may not happen. But looking back, I think you could point to another example from 2020. Pete Buttigieg, who was the big breakout star candidate of the field, stumbled and fell short in good part because he didn't have a good rapport and a lot of connection or support from black voters. I did a story about that out of South Carolina and talked to a lot of black folks there. So you're right. I think for any Democrat, and we could talk at great length about the history of the Democratic Party and its relationship with black voters, but I think you're 100% right. Anyone who's going to be the nominee of the Democratic Party in this day and age is going to need not just passing, but strong support from the black community.
Yeah. Back to LaFonza. We got about 4 or 5 minutes left here. I want to circle back to her. So she's in this seat. So for those who don't know the particulars, let's talk about how much longer this term will be, what she can actually get done. What do we know about what agenda she may have, if anything, Mark?
Well, we don't know at this point, although it has to be said, and again, this is not particular to LaFonza Butler, seniority is everything in the United States Senate. I mean, you can't overstate how important that is. She is going to come in as the most junior of 100 senators. And again, that's not to disparage her, that's just to state a fact. So, I think she'll be learning the ropes, figuring out, her committee assignments, where her office is, basics like that. I think you can count on her to be a reliable, down the line Democratic vote, probably in support of most of what Joe Biden puts forth. Big question is, and it's been answered, there was a big question before Dianne had passed, would Republicans allow Democrats to fill her slot on the Judiciary Committee? Why does that matter? Because a majority on that committee allows Democrats to confirm judges. A huge part of what was Trump's agenda, a big part of Biden's. There was a real question, if Dianne went away, would it be a tie? Would Biden be stalled? No more judges? Republicans have indicated that they will allow a Democrat to take that seat. Whether it'll be LaFonza or a different Democrat, there's a lot of shuffling whenever a senator leaves. We don't know that. But I think she's going to spend a lot of this time. And again, this goes to the challenge she would face running. I mean, getting herself situated and acclimated to the U.S. Senate, which, is a place with its own whole decorum and culture and, idiosyncrasies. And at the same time, ramp up and run a campaign going back and forth, every weekend, 3,000 miles. That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. What do we know about her relationship with Kamala? I sort of tiptoed around that earlier, but you're the reporter for 40 years covering these politics in California and beyond. What do we know about her relationship with Vice President Harris?
They're very close. They've remained close. LaFonza was an advisor on Kamala's unsuccessful 2020 presidential campaign. I think you could say that it goes beyond a client-consultant relationship. I think they're friendly. I think they're friends. I got a strong sense that if Kamala were to run for president, if something were to happen to Biden and Kamala were to run in 2024, it was my sense that LaFonza would have been right there with her. I imagine a similar relationship down the road, but they're very, very close. And interestingly, and boy, who would have thought when they were sitting there in those rooms strategizing that Senator Kamala Harris would be Vice President Kamala Harris swearing in Senator LaFonza Butler. I mean, this goes to show life and politics are crazy.
No, they are indeed. They are indeed. Let me circle back now to the race. So whether LaFonza Butler gets in or not, what we do know is that the conditions for her deciding that she wants to run have been removed. So she said to the LA Times she doesn't know whether she wants to run. There's too much coming at her too quickly. But if she were to get in this race, that means there'd be two black women, assuming that everybody stays in. Barbara Lee's running. LaFonza Butler would be running. Katie Porter, white woman, is out there. Adam Schiff, white male, is out there. I mentioned earlier the way that things are shaking out at the moment. So all that said, what's your read right now of this race, primary in March, to replace Dianne Feinstein permanently?
I think the most significant impact of LaFonza running would be it would probably divide the Democratic field even further, which would make it more likely. And just to take a step back for your listeners, California has a top two system. So which two candidates get the most votes advanced, whether they're Democratic, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, Vegetarian, doesn't matter. So 4 prominent Democrats, you could very likely see a scenario where they divide up the vote. A Republican with that, base of 35% support gets into the runoff, probably loses to a Democrat. So it makes winning that one Democratic slot, if there is just one Democratic slot, all the more important.
Mm-hmm. And what say you writ large about Gavin's future? He has won 2 consecutive terms as governor. He survived a recall. There's going to be a gap if, again, to your point, if he doesn't run in 2024, nothing happens to Joe Biden. He carries on. It's clearly on his bingo card. He wants to be president at some point. So how do you see his future unfolding during this gap term, if you will, where he can't run for president?
I think so much depends on what were to happen. Is Joe Biden reelected, in which case he's a lame duck? Does something happen? I'm not, wishing anything. But let's say all of a sudden Kamala Harris is president. Kamala Harris is president. She runs again. Does Gavin run against a sitting president from his own state? I don't see that. So there's any number of scenarios. It all comes down to what happens in 2024. Do they elect, let's just pick a name, President Nikki Haley, in which case you've got a wide open race for the Democratic primary. I mean, it all depends really on what happens in 2024. Everything from there forward is going to spin out based on who's in the White House and is it an open, race for the Democrats or not.
Got 45 seconds left here. The Congressional Black Caucus, I'm speaking to 2 members of that caucus in just a matter of minutes here on this program, Jonathan Jackson and Danny Davis. The CBC sent a letter to Gavin Newsom saying that Barbara Lee was hands down the most qualified person to take over this job and be ready on day one. That said, is LaFonza Butler up to the task of being a United States Senator?
I think she is. And I think the question for those gentlemen would be, what does the Congressional Black Caucus do now? Do you back LaFonza? Do you stick by Barbara Lee? Do you do a split endorsement? I mean, they're in a very interesting position. I'll be interested to hear what they have to say. Indeed, they are. Mark Baerback, a long-time LA Times columnist. Mark, thanks for the insights. Good to have you on. We'll do it again, my friend. All the best to you. Thanks. It was fun. Appreciate it. Take care. Thank you very much. More Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Tens of thousands of healthcare workers are poised to strike on Wednesday if negotiations don't improve with Kaiser Permanente. The workers say they are protesting unfair labor practices and unsafe staffing levels. This could be the largest healthcare worker strike in U.S. history. It will span hundreds of hospitals and facilities across the nation and affect 75,000 healthcare workers across the country. The Golden Globe Award says its membership is now diversified. The movie and TV awards show put out a press release Monday saying they've expanded their membership to include 300 journalists from around the world and that the voter breakdown is now 60% racially diverse and 47% female. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Slow and going Southgate, busy driving Long Beach and Boyle Heights. It's a wreck. Take it up the left lane on that 5 North. Approaching the 60, the left lane is blocked with a crash. Downey on the 5 North at the 605, a center lane ticket up with a collision here. Southgate on that 710 South at Imperial Highway. Second lane from the left with a wreck. We're slow from Florence. And looks like on the 710 North at Imperial Highway, the left lane also blocked with a crash. Busy from the 105. Long Beach on the 710 South approaching Willow. That's a stalled vehicle onto the right shoulder. Very busy from Long Beach Boulevard.
Wendy's new breakfast 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles lets you choose from your fave 4, including a sausage or egg and cheese biscuit, small seasoned potatoes, or medium hot coffee. Limited time only during breakfast hours. U.S. price and participation may vary. Not valid in a combo. Single item at regular price.
The holiday season is around the corner, and now is the time to think about hiring. Whether you need extra staff to meet demands or want to earn extra cash, let Express Employment Professionals connect you. Go to expresspros.com to find a location near you.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
LeBron James said his son Bronny will play for USC this season. The 19-year-old freshman is still waiting to be cleared to resume basketball duties. That decision will come from doctors, LeBron and LeBron's wife, Savannah. Bronny suffered a cardiac arrest on July 24th during a workout on the USC campus. He was diagnosed with a congenital heart defect. LeBron said Bronny underwent a successful surgery. He gave no timetable on when Bronny will be allowed to practice with the team. USC started practice on September 25th. Rams wide receiver Cooper Kupp got the okay to practice this week. Kupp has been out since August to treat a hamstring injury. He's eligible to come off injured reserve this week. If healthy and in shape, Kupp could be in the lineup for Sunday's game against Philadelphia at SoFi. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
King C. Gillette knows you're dedicated to your barbershop routine. But what about after? What's your routine for facial hair to avoid dry skin, itching, and beard rough? Well, the King C. Gillette Beard Oil is a perfect fit for making your beard feel as good as it looks. It softens your facial hair and moisturizes to help prevent itch due to dry skin. Get facial hair that feels as good as it looks. Just trim, wash, and soften with King C. Gillette.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you know that these days, generating growth is a challenge. By teaming with Bank of America, you'll not just stay ahead of the curve, you'll move it. With access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter, locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2023 Bank of America, N.A.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean. Of course I use Mr. Clean Magic Eraser to clean tough messes off my stovetop and bathtub. But then I discovered I can also use it to easily clean my patio furniture and even my shoes. I'm hooked.
And when wipes won't cut it, I use Magic Eraser Sheets. They're thin and flexible erasers, perfect for everyday messes, like gunk on my counters and sinks. They really are magical.
The reviews are in. Mr. Clean Magic Eraser and Sheets make cleaning look easy.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
All right, now a conversation with two members of the Congressional Black Caucus. We'll talk to one at a time, old school and new school. Both represent parts of the city of Chicago. The newbie is Congressman Jonathan Jackson, son of Jesse and Jackie, and we'll be joined a little bit later by longtime Congressman Danny Davis. I am honored to welcome for the first time to this program, new Congressman Jonathan Jackson. Congressman Jackson, how are you, sir?
Hello, my friend, Brother Tavis. How are you, sir?
Man, if I complained I'd be an ingrate, I am doing well. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Great to hear your voice. And,
likewise.
Great to be back on the VON and on your syndication.
No, I appreciate it, man. We're glad to be on VON, 1690 AM in Chicago. Just started there yesterday, so thanks for the shout-out. We appreciate it. I want to just cover as much as I can in the 10 or 12 minutes that we have here. Let me start with this, though. I was in Chicago some months ago, and, of course, I always check in on your parents. I love them both. How is your father doing? The country knows he's battling Parkinson's, but how's your dad doing?
He's doing great, and considering the circumstances, God bless, he'll be 82 this coming weekend, October 8th, and so I look forward to celebrating with him. Yeah. And he's a soldier. He's on the battlefield.
That he is. Give him my regards, and your mother my love, of course, as well. A few things I want to cover right quick here. We just had a conversation, spirited dialogue with Mark Bareback, columnist for the LA Times. The whole country, of course, is talking about the swearing in today of LaFonza Butler, the only black woman now in the United States Senate, being sworn in by her friend, Vice President Kamala Harris. The Congressional Black Caucus sent a letter that you signed off on, of course, sent a letter to Gavin Newsom saying that Barbara Lee would have been the best pick. She'd be ready to take that seat and be ready to move on day one. She was, according to the CBC, the most prepared. He did not go that direction. He went LaFonza Butler. As a member of the CBC, what are your thoughts on that decision?
I would like to say a very special congratulations to Senator Butler. That ship has sailed. I look forward to seeing her today at 3:30, welcoming her. It was his choice. I did not know of her, but from what I've read, she's certainly qualified and outstanding, and I wish her the best. And so that deal is done.
Yep. I assume they will, but will the CBC embrace her even though it wasn't the pick of the caucus?
Yes. As a matter of fact, Chairman of the CBC, Mr. Horsford, has already announced that we're going to have a Congressional Black Caucus ceremonial swearing in for the senior designate Butler today at 3:30. So she's coming here with welcomed and open arms. We did not know of his options, and of course, he's in a position of leadership in his state, and he can choose who he wants to, and he did. And so I applaud his decision. I simply knew Barbara, but I can get to know Butler, and I'm sure she has, from what I've read, she's done all the good things and great things. So for that, I'm grateful. I'm glad that he honored his word. He said he would appoint an African-American woman, and he's lived up to his word.
Yep, he has indeed in that regard. Let me ask a big question here, a bold question. Why is it that you wanted to be a member of Congress? When you look at this body that is dysfunctional, we're talking about all the drama surrounding Kevin McCarthy, and now the vote that's being called on his speakership, and the negotiation he'll have to do with some Democrats, I think, to hold on to that seat, and what Hakeem Jeffries is going to extract for Democrats supporting him to hold on to his seat, since they don't have enough votes to put Hakeem Jeffries in as Speaker. It's just a hot mess in Congress. Why did you want to be a part of this body?
Well, like you and so many other Americans, we sit at home and we see what happened on January 6th, which was really a turning point, that I just saw the Confederacy coming back together. And if you think you can do better, you ought to give it a try. And I come from a business background and been actively involved with my mother and father and parents and the civil rights. So I said, let me give it a try. Let me give it a chance. If the people accept me, I'm certainly willing to serve. And I also felt as if I had a duty to my country. And so I do believe in public service. I've done that from the activist lane, but let me try to do it from the inside the government of institution. I've been in private business and want to see our people get serviced in responsive time and bring resources back to the community. And 56, I was at that age last year. Children have gone through college and parents of age. let me try to do something different. And I thought that I could add something to this body. And let me tell you, I am so grateful that I was elected and so honored to be here. There's 435 people in the Congress, 100 in the Senate, 2 in the executive branch. 537 people are in the most powerful institution on earth right now.
Yeah.
There are 537. And so to get on the floor, to have access to try to persuade people, enlighten them, and a lot of people aren't necessarily against the black community. They don't even see it. They drive past it, around it, through it. We have to continue to advocate on behalf of our community, share our stories. So when I go on the Foreign Affairs Committee and tell people that with the African Growth and Opportunity Act, this is the first time we've had a trade agreement with Africa that did not require shipping and selling of African bodies, that now we're talking about selling African goods.
Yeah.
You can only do that if you're in the room. When I talk about why are Cubans coming in here with a package and Haitians that have an issue with an earthquake, with a coup in their government, and they aren't giving refugee status, and we never describe them as asylum seekers. Like, why are there 2 sets of rules? I mean, like, you can only do that from the inside. And so for that, I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
On my CBC, Congressional Black Caucus panel, I had the Afro-Colombian, the black vice president from Colombia to be on my panel. They need our help. So I can see Pan-Africanism, our people in the diaspora. And I was able to walk on the UAW picket line as a member of Congress to support and to deal with this migrant issue. I mean, this was God off what they're doing.
Yeah.
It was never an issue. When we called Europeans coming over here, give me you're tired, you're poor, you're free, you're huddled masses that are seeking freedom, we call Canada our front neighbor, we call Mexico our backdoor neighbor. And it's like there's African towns in Mexico, blacks that were escaping slavery moved into Mexico across the border. The first time our U.S. troops were put on the border was when black people were leaving slavery trying to go into Mexico for freedom. And there are blacks all throughout the Caribbean, all through Venezuela. These are our friends and our brothers and our kins that we have to speak up for. So we're going to make sure we have civilized immigration and migration policies, and we're not going to be pitted black people against brown people, against have this turn into a war on the poor. There were 100,000 Ukrainians to come into this country, and they were processed, given visas, given work, put in housing. Now, all of a sudden, that the face has changed, they're using people as pawns, and we're going to put an end to that.
What's it? Let me ask you. It's about 2 or 3 minutes left here, right quick, just 2 minutes. What's it feel like being able? And I didn't want to interrupt you, but you were laying out your bona fides on foreign policy. And foreign policy is something that black folk often don't check into. We don't pay attention to. Your father, though, has been a great emissary in Africa and, for that matter, around the globe. He's always understood the importance of our being aware of and being connected to foreign policy. My sense is you learned that from him, and you're continuing that in that trajectory. But what's it like being a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, given all that your father has done on the on the international stage?
Well, I've been on the front line with him. I've seen him without a government portfolio talk to Saddam Hussein and bring back people that were held hostage when the governments weren't talking. I was with him when we went to visit Hafez Assad when Reagan wasn't talking, and bring back a downed fighter pilot. I was with him when he took Fidel Castro to church. But even as it regards to the state of Illinois, the largest industry in the state of Illinois is agriculture. I serve on foreign affairs and I serve on agriculture. Our largest industry in the city of Chicago is in financial services. The financial services industry in the city of Chicago is comprised primarily of the traders at the Chicago Board of Trade, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, Chicago Board of Options. All of these are financial institutions. The agriculture has supervision over this. The largest industry in the state of Illinois is agriculture. Everybody has to eat.
Yeah.
In this new farm bill, 80% of this has to deal with the food and nutrition programs, the SNAP, the WIC, the TANF, all the programs that are going to support women and children. So that's why I'm on that committee.
I get it.
50% of our grain is being exported abroad. So we have to see foreign affairs as something central. Black bodies got over here because of foreign affairs.
As they say,
foreign policy.
I hear you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. As they say, the apple often doesn't fall far from the tree. It's quite a family. I've known them for decades now. Honored to have known them and befriended them over the years. Your father, of course, ran for president, 84, 88, two amazing campaigns. I worked on them and recall those heady days. His brother, Jesse L. Jackson Jr., served in Congress. Now he serves in Congress. Hard to think of a black family that has all of that in one family, and say nothing of his brilliant mother, Jackie Jackson. Congressman Jackson, good to have you on the program. All the best. You will do it again somewhere down the road, sir. Thank you for your time.
You're the best. And continued success, Brother Tavis.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Stay strong. When we come forward, that's the newbie. We'll talk to the veteran, Danny Davis, on Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
You know that Big Bargain detergent jug is 80% water, right?
80% water? I thought I was getting a better deal because it's so big.
If you want a better clean, Tide Pods are only 12% water. The rest is pure, concentrated cleaning ingredients.
Ooh, pass me the intercom thingy.
Attention shoppers. If you want a real deal, try Tide Pods.
Don't pay for water. Pay for clean. If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Pods.
Water content based on the leading bargain liquid detergent.
Don't settle for bumps, ingrowns, and itch due to dry skin. Venus for Pubic Hair and Skin is here with the only razor and regimen specifically designed for your pubic area, featuring a razor with a patented irritation defense bar and skincare regimen that is dermatologist and gynecologist tested. Venus helps protect your pubic skin from shave irritation. Visit GilletteVenus.com to learn more about our full regimen of products.
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
Indeed it is. I'm glad to have you tuned in. We're talking to two members of the Congressional Black Caucus, given the advent of LaFonza Butler, her inauguration, her swearing in today, I should say, by Kamala Harris. So now there's a black woman in the United States Senate. The Congressional Black Caucus, as I mentioned moments ago, sent a letter to Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, suggesting that Barbara Lee would be the best pick. He didn't go that direction. LaFonza Butler is there now. You just heard Congressman Jonathan Jackson comment on that. Anything you want to add to the conversation about LaFonza Butler, Congressman Danny Davis? An honor, sir, to have you on this program.
Well, thank you so very much. It's a pleasure indeed, Tavis. And let me just tell you, we're disappointed. When I say we, I mean the Congressional Black Caucus. But I think there are many other black people around America who are disappointed because we felt and feel that Barbara Lee would have just been the best possible pick. And, of course, this idea that because she's running for the position, that does not change her quality, nor does it change her qualifications. And so we think that is just unfortunate. And it's unfortunate that individuals and other political interests, I guess, prevailed upon the governor to do it this way. But we support Barbara Lee unequivocally, without a doubt, and we're going to help her get elected.
Okay. I received that. I don't have time to unpack for you again all of my commentary, but I've got some serious questions about it as well. As you know, this conversation is syndicated across the country. This show is, but I'm sitting in California, so I know this issue rather well, and I've got some concerns as well that I raised earlier, but you and I are simpatico in that regard, so I won't reprise what I said earlier. Let me just move ahead right quick and make the most of these few minutes that I do have with you, and I'm grateful for your time, Congressman Davis. So we averted, you all, I should say, averted the shutdown of government over the last couple of days, but now we got all this drama regarding Kevin McCarthy's speakership. It appears that he cannot hold on to it without some Democrat support, and the brilliant Hakeem Jeffries, minority leader, is going to figure out what that looks like and how to extract something from McCarthy for the Democrats if he has to rely on Democratic votes to hold on to his speakership. It's a hot mess, as I said earlier. How do you read it?
Well, I'm not looking for any Democratic votes for Speaker McCarthy.
Right.
I think this is a civil war taking place within the ranks of the Republican caucus, and if it's their war, they have to solve it themselves. So I certainly wouldn't be one of any vote that would take place to assist Speaker McCarthy to retain his position. Let the Republicans work it out. It's a Republican issue. It shows that they have difficulty leading and governing, and they shouldn't be in the position. I'm for Hakeem Jeffries becoming the Speaker. That's how I voted the first round, second round, 15th round, and that's how I'm going to vote now.
And that's why I love Daddy Davis. He's a brilliant brother. You can tell the difference between old school and new school. He knows his way around the Capitol. He knows the immutable principles by which he lives, and I'm honored to have him on this program. We'll continue with Congressman Danny Davis when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good.
Yeah, man.
Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action is the youth component of the impactful CBO, known as the Community Coalition. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action has chapters at almost every South LA high school. Say Yeah, as they are popularly known, is located at 80th and Vermont, but serves young people all over South LA. Under the COCO umbrella, they train youth organizers, help underserved scholars prepare for college, and work with students to help them gain admission to top universities. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action fosters teen activism, where young people have led campaigns moving tens of millions of dollars to South LA schools and forcing officials to make AP classes available to students in under-resourced institutions. SCES scholars have taken part in the March on Washington, been published in major news outlets, and been elected to city council. Long before she was mayor, Karen Bass started the program when she founded the Community Coalition. To donate, volunteer, or enroll a student in South Central Youth Empowered Through Action, please visit cocsouthla.org. cocsouthla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Gotta stay fresh, ma.
House shot with a rest bar. Shot with a rest bar. Shot with a rest bar.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
The bounce is back.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
Got 4 or 5 quick minutes left here. 4 or 5 minutes left with Congressman Danny Davis out of Chicago, who I'm honored to have on, particularly given that we are now heard on WVON 1690 AM in Chicago, and I'm thrilled about that. Congressman, let me ask you right quick. It seems to me that Republicans should have been humiliated and embarrassed on this first day of so-called hearings regarding the potential impeachment of Joe Biden. But what do you make of this farce that we are being subjected to right about now?
Well, it's an effort to try and divert attention away from their lack of ability to lead, lack of their ability to govern, and the lack of their ability to care about the people of this country. That's why we often say we put people over politics. They're playing politics with the impeachment proceedings, which mean absolutely nothing other than putting before the American people information that is inaccurate. We've gone through that, looked at it, couldn't find anything at all that the president had done. And so whatever has been done, somebody else did it, but they're not going to be able to get away with that. It's you fool me once, shame on me. Mm-hmm. Fool me twice, shame on you. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be able to fool the American people. There's nothing there, and no matter how they play it, nothing will be found.
Yeah. I said earlier on today's program we're going to have a newbie and a veteran, old school and new school. We talked to Jonathan Jackson a few minutes earlier before you came on. Obviously, he's the newbie. You're the veteran. You're the old school. I asked him why, with all the dysfunction in Congress, he wanted to go to Congress in the first place. I want to ask you a different version of that question. Given all the drama, again, the same dysfunction that you see every day, you're still in this, and you've been at it for a long time. Every other day I look up somebody's retiring. You've decided not to do that. What is it that wakes you up every morning and keeps you in the fight all these years later, Danny Davis?
We've got unfinished business, and we have Republicans seriously attempting to take back all those gains that it has taken us all this time to make. We cannot let them do it to try and convince us that going backwards to slavery, who could believe that slavery had some benefit for African Americans, or that you should not teach the true history of the country? That's beyond the pale. That's off the chart.
Yeah.
That's acting as if America is the America of 200 years ago. Nope. And I've got to stick around to try and make sure that we continue to go forward and never, ever go backwards.
I've got two good friends, both of them named Danny Davis. One of them lives here in Los Angeles. He's been with me for about 30-plus years. The other is a congressman in Chicago. They're both named Danny Davis. They're both brilliant brothers, and one of them has served honorably for many years in the United States Congress, and I'm always delighted to be in conversation with Chicago's own Congressman Danny Davis. Congressman, thank you for your time, sir. All the best. We'll do it again somewhere down the road.
Thank you. You know we respect you, love you, and welcome you back.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Thank you for saying that. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Tens of thousands of healthcare workers are poised to strike on Wednesday if negotiations don't improve with Kaiser Permanente. The workers say they are protesting unfair labor practices and unsafe staffing levels. This could be the largest healthcare worker strike in U.S. history. It will span hundreds of hospitals and facilities across the nation and affect 75,000 healthcare workers across the country. The Golden Globe Award says its membership is now diversified. The movie and TV awards show put out a press release Monday saying they've expanded their membership to include 300 journalists from around the world and that the voter breakdown is now 60% racially diverse and 47% female. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Slow and go in Southgate, busy driving left with a wreck where